Normally on this channel, I like to mostly talk about recent indie games because that's what my audience likes to hear about, and my job as a content creator is to make what my audience wants to see. But today, I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be taking a stroll down memory lane and looking at some of the most nostalgic games from my childhood. I just thought this would be a great video idea since as I'm recording this, it is August 13th, which is my birthday. I am 19 this year. It really doesn't feel like it, but I am. Anyway, a lot of these games you probably have nostalgia for as well, since they're all pretty popular with my generation. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and be sure to let me know in the comments about some of your experiences with these games, and what your most nostalgic childhood games are. And with all of that said, make sure to subscribe so we can up those numbers. Thanks to my channel members, and let's go ahead and get into it. Kicking off the list, I've got Minecraft PlayStation 3 Edition. I will also mention Minecraft PlayStation 4 Edition, but we gotta go with the OG. So Minecraft PlayStation 3 Edition was my 7th birthday gift, and I just realized, I don't know where the disc is. I'll have to find that after I record this. Okay, I did just check my PS3 and it was in it, so we're good. But yeah, this is not my original copy. I actually, I guess, sold my other copy, but I ended up getting this about a year ago. Now, everyone here knows what Minecraft is, so I barely have to explain anything to you at all. And it's also fairly reasonable to assume that you also have massive nostalgia for the game. I started playing Minecraft when I was 5 years old on the mobile version, and there's this one particular memory I have of playing the game on my tablet while watching Dora the Explorer in the back. My attention span was doomed from the start. Then I remember after getting the PlayStation 3 version of the game, me and my friend started a creative world, and we settled in at a village. She took one of those castle looking houses and then kicked me out of it, so I had to build my own house. And of course, just like every other elementary kid, I decided it would be a great idea to build my house out of gold blocks, because that just looks stunning. Now, the footage you're looking at right now is a recreation of the house. It's mostly intact, but I did some remodeling to it a few years back when I was bored. I do indeed still have access to this world. I also have an old video that's still up where I revisit this Minecraft world, which it actually is my first ever world that I really dedicated time to. It has a lot of my friends' builds on it as well, and yeah, it's just super nostalgic. I have some nostalgia with the other console versions of Minecraft. It's the reason they are all still my favorite versions, but the biggest thing is definitely that first world. Like, this place is just magical to me. There was a time where, since we were young kids, we poured a bunch of lava on the village and then cooled it off with water, which created a bunch of cobblestone and obsidian everywhere that just clogged the entire village. Yeah, it was a mess. But like I said, I did some remodeling a few years back, and that was the first thing I fixed. I've also entered in the seed of the world before to get the original seed without any building on it, just so that I could admire it in its natural state. But yeah, this random generation of blocks has had an immeasurable impact on my childhood, so let's move on to the next game. So next up, I've got Toy Story 2 Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue for Nintendo 64, which according to my memory is one of the first, if not the first game I've ever played, all the way back when I was like 2. This game is just okay, but back then it was mind-blowing. Now, you may be confused that I had a Nintendo 64 in 2008, but to that I say I still play in 2025, so it's really not that weird. Yeah, I still grew up with the Nintendo 64 despite being an 06 baby. Anyway, back to the game. This Toy Story game is pretty much just another 3D platformer just like Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie. This game is also available on the Sony PlayStation, and that version is obviously much better due to hardware capabilities, but the Nintendo 64 version is the one I know. Now, as of right now, the only levels in this game that I really recall are the first two, that being Andy's house and Andy's backyard, but these levels are quite literally a time capsule for me. I probably should go back to this game sometime since it's just so significant to me, but it really has been such a long time. It's not a great game or anything, but that's the whole point of nostalgia blindness. Okay, so next I want to talk about the LittleBigPlanet games, which were basically Mario Maker games for PlayStation kids back in the day. Let's begin with the first one. LittleBigPlanet was an immediate classic according to both critics and players. Now, I remember playing this game when I was as young as 4 years old, and I didn't know the name of the game, so I just called it the Alien game because I thought Sackboy kind of looked like an alien. LittleBigPlanet is a 2D platformer that, aside from having its own offline campaign story levels, also gives you the tools to make levels for yourself and share them with people online. So many of my best memories are with this game because of sharing levels with other people, including but not limited to the shark attack levels where you would literally jump across platforms and avoid sharks, and also Angry Birds Bomb Survival, which is one of the stupidest concepts ever created, but it is a genuinely fun level. I also specifically remember making a level themed around something that me and my friend did, but it's kinda embarrassing, so I don't know if you would want me to reveal it. I have gone back to LittleBigPlanet since my childhood, but I never really got fully invested back into it, and it is more difficult to really get back into it now that the servers are unfortunately gone. I'm really holding out hope that we're gonna get some remasters of these games that include brand new servers, because I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that my life is genuinely a lot better when LittleBigPlanet is a part of it. But also, that was just the first game. There's also a couple other LittleBigPlanet games that I have nostalgia for. The first one is obviously the sequel, LittleBigPlanet 2, which is a less iconic but still excellent sequel that introduced a ton of amazing ways to create levels. And we've also got LittleBigPlanet Karting, which is just a Mario Kart clone, but it's not really that bad. I do still have great memories with it. Overall though, the majority of my nostalgia is found in the first game, whether it be the visuals, music, or the thousands of created levels that I loved. LittleBigPlanet pretty much raised me in my elementary years. So before we dive into the rest of the content, I want to briefly check out a Nintendo Switch 2 dock that somebody over at Antank sent me, the S3 Max Switch 2 dock. The Nintendo Switch 2 is upon us, and it's one of the most expensive consoles of all time, not because of the console price itself, but the price of everything else. So if you're somebody who travels a lot, but you don't want to take your expensive Switch 2 dock with you, you may want to look for a cheaper alternative to use while you are on the go. This docking station is designed to be cheap and portable. As you can see, it's just a tiny little stand. It may look flimsy, but it's actually quite sturdy. In fact, when I first used it, it was so well connected to my console that for a second I thought I might have done something wrong and got it stuck. But no, it's just really sturdy. Now, the major selling point to someone like me when looking at a dock like this is obviously going to be the fact that it's more portable and much cheaper, but it also is supposed to perform better in terms of airflow and making sure the console does not overheat. Honestly though, to me as your average consumer, I have not had any issues with my Switch 2 overheating that I know of. And I've played a good bit of both of the big Switch 2 releases thus far. Also, in terms of specific capabilities, this is the resolution and refresh rate it can output, and it supports 100 watt power delivery. Now, the only thing you might not like about this dock is there's no wired internet cable. Yeah, that's annoying, but for me, the situations where I would be using this, which is on a vacation of some kind, I would not really be needing wired internet. And also, you gotta remember, this is a budget dock. So me personally, no wired internet port built in, that's not a deal breaker for me, but maybe it is for you. My only complaint with this thing during my testing was that the picture is a little bit different color compared to how my regular dock looks on my TV. However, it could have been my TV causing the picture change, since it's a smart TV that isn't really designed for people like me that are really particular about the perfect color shades. So I tested the two docks on a different TV in order to determine if it was really the dock's fault, and it worked perfectly fine. So it's definitely just my smart TV being annoying. But yeah, that means I've had zero issues with this thing. So I'm gonna give it a solid review of 7.5 out of 10 because it's not a product that will change your life, but it can make traveling with all of your stuff a bit safer since you're not risking scratching up a $125 dock. I recommend this product, and thank you to Antank for sending me this. Also, they actually do have versions of this dock that have a wired internet port, so if that's something you really need, they've got you. Since I enjoyed the product, they were kind enough to share a 10% coupon with my viewers on their website, and the coupon code is Antank2025. Now let's get back to the content. Next, I want to talk about Mario. Now, we've all played a Mario game once or twice, even if you're not really a fan of the franchise, but me? I have been a fan of the franchise for as long as I can remember. So let's start with New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, and I'm sure most of us have nostalgia for this one. It was Mario's grand return to the two-dimensional format after so many absent years, and it didn't disappoint at the time, although all the new power-ups that were introduced are pretty bad retrospectively, but the level design and collectibles are awesome. And I don't just have nostalgia for the base game. This game also came with a ton of random minigames too, like drawing trampolines for Mario to jump on, rolling a snowball down a hill, and underage gambling with Luigi. If I'm being honest though, most of the nostalgia actually just comes from the title screen out of all things. I guess I just spent a lot of time on it as a kid. I just don't really know how to explain it. But just the aesthetic here combined with the music, it gives me a lot of nostalgia. But moving on to the next game in the series, we have New Super Mario Bros. Wii. The series made the jump to the next Nintendo home console, and with it came simultaneous 4-player multiplayer insanity. I already have a few challenge videos of this game up on this channel from a few years ago. Needless to say, I have revisited this game quite a bit, and even though the levels in this game were clearly designed with 4 players at a time and can often feel empty and underbaked if you're just playing by yourself, I still love it every time I revisit it, no matter how many players there are. To anyone else, New Super Mario Bros. Wii has a very generic graphical style, especially when you compare it to recent entries, but to me, this style right here is what I immediately envision when I think Mario, for better or for worse. Unfortunately, I do not have as many specific memories with this game, but it absolutely was one of my favorite games as a child. And let's move on to another Mario game from this console generation, which is absolutely one of the greatest games of all time, and that's Super Mario Galaxy. Mario Galaxy gives me a lot of nostalgia, but a lot of it doesn't even come from the game. Now, I actually remember originally receiving this game from my grandma on Easter. Yes, the economy was that good back then that I received a video game for Easter. We really are living in a horrible decade right now. Anyway, this is the exact copy that she gave me. It has seen better days. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but yeah, you can see it was the Nintendo Selects version because this game got a huge price drop because of it, and that's how I was able to get a video game on Easter. It was like 20 bucks. It's just unheard of now to get a Mario game of this caliber for $20. Holy shit. Anyway, another thing I remember is playing this game briefly with my babysitter, although I don't think we made much progress. Now, I don't remember if I ever beat this game until like 2019-ish. It's not a difficult game at all, but back then, I just didn't have the attention span to finish that many games. I mostly am just nostalgic for the first couple hours of this game. The atmosphere at the start of this game genuinely means so much to me, because I mean, at the time, I didn't know anything about space, and this game was pretty much the introduction to space in general to me, and it was just so peaceful yet with a pitch of melancholy, and that music that plays when you wake up from the opening cutscene, it's just absolutely timeless. Super Mario Galaxy is one of the best games of all time, but my childhood memories of it aren't even really from the game itself. It's just about how the game made me feel. And next, I want to talk about Mario Kart Wii. Mario Kart Wii has a much different atmosphere to Galaxy. The game is much more uncanny in its art style in my opinion, but everything from the graphics, sound effects, music, track design, it's not just me that has nostalgia for this game, it's the entire internet right now. A specific memory that I love to remember is when I unlocked Diddy Kong in this game. Now, Diddy Kong was my favorite video game character for a while due to a game I will talk about here in a minute, and once I unlocked him in this game, I sprinted down to the stairs to tell my mom, and she didn't care at all, but it was at least comforting at the time to tell somebody that I unlocked him. I don't have much else to remember aside from the fact that this game was another Easter gift, this time from my parents. It was so funny. I remember finding the game out in my yard as if the Easter Bunny put it out there. Remembering this really puts into perspective how magical my parents made my childhood, and how I'm gonna have to try my absolute hardest to replicate that for my kids. Anyway, last year I started playing a lot more Mario Kart Wii because before that, I kinda had a sour aftertaste of it due to just being spoiled by Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and just how legendary of a game that is. But once I went back to Mario Kart Wii and re-experienced the great balancing, amazing track design, and unique gameplay, I grew to really love it once again. And that's pretty much it for the Wii games on this list. Actually, I lied, because the final Wii game of the list is Donkey Kong Country Returns, which currently, after all the games I've played over the past couple years, still slots in as my second favorite game ever made. And we are going to take a look at the first favorite game later in the video, but what you need to know is both of these games are my favorite, mostly because of nostalgia. They are still excellent games in their own right, but I digress. Donkey Kong Country Returns was a revival of the Donkey Kong Country series, and it released in 2010. Now, my mom absolutely loved the original Donkey Kong Country back when she was a teenager, so she immediately bought this game when it came out. What she didn't know at the time is that it would become one of the most cherished things I have in my entire life. Now, the earliest memory I have of this game is actually when we were in Target and she was playing the demo of it. Wow, would I love to walk in a Target in 2010 again, dude. I would throw away my savings to experience that again. Anyway, we then got the game and it was fucking awesome. Now, I know many people criticize this game for forced motion controls, and that's fair, but as long as you play with the nunchuck, it's really not that much of a pain to use at all. The level design in this game is genuinely masterful, and even though some people hate how difficult it is, I think this is one of the only times where skill issue is a valid response, and I'm serious, this game is not that difficult. People just expected it to be just as brainless as Mario Bros. Wii, but this game actually takes the teeniest bit of investment in order to not die constantly. There are difficult levels, but the ones that I would consider difficult are usually skippable, and overall, I just think the difficulty of this game is really overblown. I have a few good memories with Donkey Kong Country Returns outside of the Target thing I talked about. One of them was having a play date with my friend from preschool and playing this game, although I only remember him being picked up from his dad. I don't remember us even playing the game. The other time was just me and someone else cracking up at Cranky Kong's voice lines in this game. And the most nostalgic parts of this game are the first two worlds, as these were the ones I would play over and over. I also remember I made my mom go out and buy me a banana, not because I actually liked the fruit at the time, but just so that I could go outside and pretend to be Donkey Kong. And I also made my mom make me a Donkey Kong tie out of paper, which everything I just described to you sounds absolutely insane, but that's the beauty about being a kid. You're literally in a world of your own. At least I was. And unfortunately, a lot of kids I see now never get that kind of childhood because they immediately get thrown on YouTube Kids when they're like 3 and never develop any fun outside activities or problem-solving skills. I really need to stop yelling at clouds in this video, I'm sorry. Next up, we finally get to talk about a game from a different console, although I'm still not done this banana. And that is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the PlayStation 2. This is a random kids game from 2003 that got pretty horrible reviews, but to be fair, I actually don't think it's that bad. I don't really care to go back to this game, at least not right now, but I did some researching for this video in order to see how much nostalgia I truly had for it, using walkthroughs on YouTube, and oh my goodness, every sound effect, every backdrop of these stages. I really must have played this game a lot. Due to the fact that it brought back so many memories, I had to mention it here, despite you guys probably not really caring about this game or relating to me. Hey, listen, we all have that 7 out of 10 kids game that we grew up with that we will forever be loyal to. It just so happens I had 2 of them. But anyway, this leads me to the last big game that I will be talking about today, and that is, of course, my favorite video game of all time, Red Dead Redemption. So this game released in 2010, but I think I really started playing it in 2012-ish, alongside my father. My dad's been a gamer since the 80s, but he never really had plans to play Red Dead Redemption until he tried the zombie DLC, Undead Nightmare, because he'll play literally any zombie game that does the bare minimum and exists. Long story short, he loved it, so he played the rest of the game too, and then he got me into playing the multiplayer mode with him using our dual PS3 setup, and let me just tell you, multiplayer Red Dead Redemption back in the day, it was magical. Not just because I was a kid either, it was just a genuinely amazing mode. Of course, you can do free roam with your friends and also randoms, but there's tons of modes you can do, including shootouts, zombie hordes, horse racing. This multiplayer mode was jam-packed with stuff to do, and actually gave you fun rewards using XP level ups. I have so much nostalgia for this mode. After loving the multiplayer, I went on to play through the base game, and of course I loved it, which is why the game is now my favorite game of all time. John Marston Marston's story is incredible, it's thought-provoking, it's badass, and if you're mad the game is pretty easy, the hardcore mode offers a much better challenge. But anyway, most of my memories with this game involve the multiplayer mode, because that's what I usually played as a kid. I have two memories in specific that I'd love to share. The first one is when me and my friend kept jumping off a cliff and singing Radioactive the entire time. To be honest, I think we just liked how the ragdoll animations look. The other thing is a lot stranger. Basically, in the earlier years of the online mode, there was this really weird glitch that could be used to farm XP. There would basically be this glitch where an NPC would be lying on the ground and he'd be saying like help me or something. Then if you shoot him, he just keeps dying over and over and you basically just rack up XP for a good few minutes. We got to maximum level by doing this, and then out of nowhere one day, we could never get this to work again. But yeah, not before we reached maximum level. Anyway, this is always going to be my favorite game of all time, not just because of nostalgia, but because I love the Wild West. I love everything about this game. The atmosphere is fucking amazing. I especially love Mexico in this game. Just absolutely amazing atmospheric music. This game is just never ever going to get old for me. And the biggest stain on this game's reputation is Rockstar being too lazy to bring the multiplayer mode to the modern versions of the game. And look, I am never going to forgive them for that. Okay, so that was pretty much all of the major games that I have huge nostalgia for. Of course, there definitely are a few games that I'm missing, whether it's just because they're a little bit less significant or I just didn't have anything to really say about them. Like Mario 64, for example. Literally, all I remember is walking around in the overworld for a little bit. I'd love to hear from you on what your most nostalgic games are and what your greatest memories are with them. Nostalgia is a beautiful thing because it's basically a time machine in our brains, and it is weird how some games out there just have that nostalgic feeling even if you didn't play them as a kid. I think this typically occurs when a game is mimicking an older time period, like for Undertale or Five Nights at Freddy's. These games are giving off that subliminal innocent feeling, like something that's designed to comfort you, but in reality terrifies you. Those are both loosely tied to nostalgia, so I think that's why that happens. Regardless, I'd love to hear what games you have massive nostalgia for. I'm sure we'll end up having a lot of games in common since my viewers are typically the same age group as I. Anyways, thanks for checking out this video, leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you later.